Today is June 9th, 2021. My name is John Swain, and I'll be conducting this oral history interview with Adewale Ajayi, a Marine veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. Tonight, Ajayi will be sharing his experiences during Bravo Company 4th Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion's 2009 deployment to Helmand Province, Afghanistan. This interview is pursuant to the practicum requirements for American Military University's Master's degree in Public History. It will also be submitted to the Veterans History Project of the Library of Congress for the benefit of future generations. Ajayi, please state your rank, name, and birth date for the record.
For the record, Marines, or right now, present, like what am I?
Both.
Okay, so in the Marines, separated as a staff sergeant, and now I'm in the Air National Guard as a technical sergeant, E6.
So where were you born?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Tell me a little about your life before the military.
Before the military, I grew up here. I'm local guy. I was in the sports, definitely in the action movies. Schwarzenegger, Jean-Claude Van Damme, those type of movies. So anything military related, I was always watching action flicks. So I would say that was my inspiration early on in my childhood, seeing military movies and stuff like that.
Did you have any family members who were veterans?
Yeah, I did. So my grandfather served in Vietnam. He was a cook in the Army. And then my great-grandfather served in the Korean War, so on my mom's side. And then I had an uncle that served in the Vietnam War. And I had cousins that was in the Marines as well. So.
When did you first show interest in the military?
I'd probably say my freshman year of high school. I did the Junior Reserves Officer Training Corps.
Which year was that? Do you remember what year that was?
That was 2000. Yeah, 2000, 2001. So I started off with the Marine Corps program, and then I transitioned to the Navy program at the high school that I graduated from, which was Randallstown.
Do you remember where you were on September 11th, 2001?
Yes. September 11th, 2001, I was in music class in the 10th grade, and the teacher turned on the TVs, and we saw the planes hitting the towers, and then there's like a little panic. Everybody trying to get out of school. Parents would come pick their children up for early dismissal, because it was pretty frightening seeing that live on TV, seeing the planes go into the towers. So I was sophomore then.
Why did you choose to join the Marine Corps in particular?
Well, okay, so why did I join the Marines? So I would say it was my junior year high school. I went to a leadership camp during the summertime, and the Marines were the instructors during that summer camp. So I would say I felt more comfortable with going with the Marines. So from that experience, so I was like, I'll just go ahead and enlist in the Marine Corps.
What did your family think about your decision to join?
My mother she accepted it. My father, he was more hesitant, so that's how I winded up getting into Bravo, coming into the reserves. He didn't want me to go active duty, so he insisted me, signing up for the reserves, and that's what I wound up doing.
Were you able to choose your job when you joined?
So there was only 2 reserve companies or battalions in Maryland. So one was 4 CEB, and then 4th LAR Bravo Company. So my ASVAB wasn't that great, so that's how I landed in the infantry with 4th LAR Bravo Company. Yeah.
What did you think about becoming an LAV crewman?
So initially, when I saw the vehicle, when my recruiter took me to see, like, you want to be a driver for this vehicle, I didn't know what it was. I was like, okay, that's great. Just go ahead and go to boot camp and worry about it later on down the road.
When did you ship to boot camp?
July 2004.
Summer in Paris Island.
Mm-hmm.
So what brought you, you talked a little bit about it, but what brought you to Bravo Company in particular?
In particular, because that was the only jobs I qualified for at the time. When I took my ASVAB, and I was looking to place me in a reserve company, and it was like it's close to home, so that's where I winded up.
Do you remember when you checked into the unit?
It was March of 2005. I checked in.
And what did you think of the unit when you first checked in?
I thought it was cool. It was like a lot of veterans from the the invasion from 2003 that was still around. So I had a lot of guys to look up to.
So tell me a little bit about your personal life at this time. Between when you checked into the unit and when they left for Iraq in 2006. What was your civilian job? Your friends, family? What did your life look like?
So back then, at that time, before leading up to leaving for the 2006 deployment, I was working at a warehouse. Let's see, what was I doing? Operating a forklift, stocking shelves, inventory, stuff like that, offloading, shipping containers, and then I was dating a young lady at the time who would be my wife and the mother of my son during that time, and I was going to college part-time, community college of Baltimore County, and that was it pretty much.
When did you first hear that you'd be going to Iraq?
I want to say it was probably it might have been the fall of 2005. I want to say that we might have been going to Iraq or to Horn of Africa, and then the Horn of Africa deployment that wound up getting taken off the plate. So the next thing was going to Iraq doing the DSU mission, the Dam Security Mission.
What did you know about your mission? What did they tell you before you left?
That we would be patrolling the Euphrates River, and at that time, I mean, when I heard of the Euphrates, I'm thinking biblical times, Euphrates, Tigris, and like, oh, this is some history making stuff right here. We're about to be a part of. So I was like, yeah, I was very excited for that mission to go over.
And you all were going to be on boats.
On boats, yeah.
Did you have an option to go on this deployment? Did they come to you and say, you can either go or stay?
No, I don't think at that time. Well, at the time when we first initially learned about the deployment, it was between Horn of Africa and then going to Iraq. So I wasn't at the level of swim qual that I needed to be on the boat. So I had to actually prep myself for that. So I spent some time in the pool, and then I eventually became a Class 2 swimmer, so I could go on that boat mission.
How old were you at the time?
I was, 19 going on 20, so 20. By the time we left, I was 20.
What was your rank and billet?
I was a Lance Corporal, and my billet was Afghana, so I was on the brig of the boat, manning either Mark 19 or 50 cal, and then driving trucks as well, or some 7 tons.
Tell me a little bit about that deployment, the Dam Security Unit deployment.
So that deployment was 6 months. So I would say we had a good battle rhythm. I would say we the company split up. Some Marines went to Haditha and some went to Ramadi, and that's where I went. I was with 1st Platoon in Ramadi, Iraq. So when we got there, we stayed busy. Pretty much went out every other day. Then rest refit, did the op order for the next mission, and that's pretty much what we were doing all the way up towards the end. So,
who were some of your closest friends in the unit at this time?
I would say closest friends during the time. Let's see, I would say Austin Lawler. Let's see who else I was tight with then. Patrick Jefferson. Those guys. So pretty much everybody was in 1st Platoon at that time. I was pretty close with. We all a good group of guys back then.
Did you have any mentors in the unit?
Oh yeah, my boat captain and my coxswain. So it was Robert Hartlove and then Eric Miller. He was a sergeant at that time.
Were you close with David Smith during the deployment?
Yeah, I mean we our racks were not far from each other. We were always working together, either on a working party or just out on a ramp doing something. So yeah.
Do you remember anything specifically about him, or?
Oh, he's his presence was well known. He's a burly guy, big guy, like to rough house every time. We'll around with the guys, we'll wrestle, stuff like that. He was a Marine's Marine. He definitely wanted to be there. He's one of those type of guys that would you had no problem. If you needed something, he had your back. If you was outside the wire, that's a guy that you want to be with you when you're outside the wire doing a mission.
Do you remember your first contact with the enemy during that deployment?
First contact. During that deployment, it's probably just pop shots. Sniper fire. I think the first time, and then it just progressed. It was like everything you could think of. They tried to come at us with. They even tried to do IEDs and floaties, and styrofoam coolers and that type things like that. So yeah, so sniper fire, RPGs, machine guns, all of it.
Lots of close calls, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
Anything stick out in particular just over the deployment? Any experiences that really stuck with you, or any moments, anything like that you can think of?
I would say during that deployment, that's a lot. Trying to think. Going up to the dam, that was rough. So second platoon, which was at the time was Lieutenant Newkirk. I think he was a second lieutenant or first lieutenant at the time, and then Sergeant Chris, he was a sergeant then. They came down to get us at the halfway point, and we was in some rough waters getting shot at, and the boat that I was in started sinking because we hit an aqueduct underneath the water. So that was a memorable experience. And then his boat, Mark Chris's boat, got hit by a rocket propelled grenade. It didn't go off or anything like that. It was just stuck in the boat. So his boat, coxswain, had to drive the boat around in the dam for a while for EOD to come get the device out of the boat and dispose of it. So that was a memorable experience, I would say.
When did you come home from Iraq?
I think it was May of 2006.
How were you welcomed back home?
So it was all the families. My family was there. My wife, my son was there. It was a big welcome home, I would say.
Did you ever have any encounters with people who were protesting the war?
No, I didn't. Actually, I didn't. I'm not coming home anyway.
So what did your life look like between when you came back and in 2009, in those couple of years?
So I was still going to school, bounced around a couple jobs. I wound up doing working for Loomis Armored Car Company leading up to the 2009 deployment. So I was just an ATM service technician and picking up cash from various businesses, and I was still in school and raising my kid, and I was still married at the time.
When did you first receive word that your unit would be deploying to Afghanistan?
I'm trying to think what month it was or time frame. I think it was maybe the springtime. I want to say spring of 2009. Around that time frame, I want to say.
Did you have an option to go on this one? Since you'd already been, to Iraq, deployed once, did they give you an option whether or not you wanted to go on this one?
No, I don't remember it being an option for me per se, but I think we had already met our dwell time, so I think it was 3 years. It would seem like we were going out the door for something. So I definitely wanted to go. I definitely remember wanting to go. I didn't want to stay behind.
How'd you feel, because this is your second time overseas, did you feel any different than before going to Iraq?
Oh, yeah, I felt different because this is uncharted territory for me. I never been to Afghanistan, but I definitely wanted to go. Initially, after the events of 9/11, I was like, I'd rather go to Afghanistan as opposed to going to Iraq. But that's just how it worked out, going to Afghanistan second, as opposed to going to when the first deployment did.
Did going to Afghanistan feel differently than going to Iraq?
Oh yeah, definitely, because it was a whole different mission set. Actually doing our jobs as being LAV crewmen, as opposed to being a boat company. So it's a whole different mission set, I would say.
How old were you, and what was your rank and billet here at this time?
During that time, I think it was 23 going on 24, and I was a corporal, and I was a gunner on LAV 25 in first platoon.
What did they tell you initially about Bravo Company's mission in Afghanistan?
I knew that we were going to Helmand and that we would be relieving Second LAR. So we were part of those the troop surge. I would say the 10,000 troops at the time that President Obama had authorized to go to Afghanistan.
So what did you do to personally prepare yourself, physically and mentally for the deployment?
I would say physically, just PT. Mentally, I think I was already there because I had my previous experience in combat, being in Iraq. So I was already set, ready to go. At that time, gung ho, ready to go.
Tell me a little bit about the build-up training.
The build-up training. Okay, so I think we went to Pendleton. I think that year we went to Pendleton for AT, and then we went to 29 Palms for gunnery. So we did our qualification for gunnery for the crewmen, and I think the scouts, the 0311s, they did their scout packages, did various trainings, room clearing, trench clearing, stuff like that. Then we came back for a brief time, and then mobilized, got activated, and then went back to Pendleton again and did some more training. And we were doing what they call was clear hold build. So that's what we were doing. Then we went, going between Pendleton and 29 Palms, and doing more ranges and more I would say room clearing and stuff like that.
Do you think the build-up training sufficiently prepared the company for the deployment?
No, I didn't think it was enough, because at the time, because it was a battalion level mobilization, I feel like we didn't really have a real grasp on what we were doing day to day. It was like we show up to the ramp, sit on the ramp, working on the vehicles, waiting for word all day. Then we get bused back to our rooms. So we really didn't have control over what training we were doing or any input. We were just waiting for word to come down to us, as opposed to the other workup I was on with the DSU deployment. It was company led workup with the assistance of the Marines that were there at the Special Missions Training Center. So we had the guys learn how to operate the boats, and then the other Marines learn how to work the machine guns and stuff like that. So it was more training, I would say, doing that mission, as opposed to the one we're doing for the workup to go to Afghanistan.
When did you leave for Afghanistan?
It was October of 2009.
And who'd you leave behind?
My wife, my son, my family, my parents. That was, I would say, yeah.
How old was your son at the time?
My son was, I think he was during that time he was about 3. Yeah, 3 years old. Yeah.
How did you say goodbye?
I spent a lot of time like the pre-deployment leave with him. Just I don't think he understood what was going on. So it was just said my goodbyes, and that was it. And my mom dropped me off, I think, because we left from Frederick, and then we flew back to Pendleton, and then we flew out right after that to go over to Afghanistan.
Was your family worried for you?
Oh yeah, of course. Definitely.
How did you get to your area of operations in Helmand Province?
By plane. So we went. Let's see, where did we go? We went to Manas, and from Manas to Camp Leatherneck. And I think from Leatherneck we flew on helicopters to the Concarnation Castle, and then we stayed there for I think a day or two, and then we were trucked and to our patrol base from there.
What were your first impressions of Helmand Province? Those first couple days you were there.
Oh man, my first impression is like this is really rough. Like we don't have any of the amenities that we had on the Iraq deployment. This is bare bones. This is it. It's like, okay, this is where we're gonna be at for the next 6-7 months. It sets in like once you're there, like this is like some ancient times type deal. Like here we out in the wild west by ourselves. So yeah, it was pretty rough.
I think Colonel Martin referred to it as a camping trip gone wrong.
Yes.
Before we left.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was the mission that Bravo Company was expected to conduct there at Shabu in Helmand Province?
So initially, I was thinking under longer lines of what we were training up to do, clear hold build. So the clear hold build that was already done initially by Second LAR when they did the push from Leatherneck all the way down to Helmet where we all winded up. But we were just there. I think it's a presence mainly, and then just doing security patrols and stuff like that.
What were your thoughts on the mission at the time? Was it clear to you, or?
I would say it really wasn't to me. To me, it really wasn't clear. Like, what are we doing? What? Because once we got there, we was at the patrol base. We just holding this area. Like, but I didn't see any point outside of that. Like, I thought we were going to do LAR stuff and actually, patrol with the vehicles. But I saw the terrain was too restrictive. So I saw the need to, while we were actually there to stay at that patrol base during that time. I understood that, but I was a corporal. I was a E4. I'm doing whatever I was told to do.
So it was all dismounted. It wasn't really any vehicle operations.
Not during the initial 3 months that we were there. Were not really vehicle operations. It was more dismounted patrols, night posts, listening posts, observation posts.
Did the transition with Second LAR go according to plan?
Yeah. Everything went well. They pretty much showed us what our area operation, things to be on the lookout for. The main thing that I picked up on was how to patrol, like the whole ranger file. Just stand, everybody stay in the same path, and somebody up front sweeping, and then wearing the man packs, the electric countermeasures. So that was the big thing. Like the IED threat was big during that time that we were there.
Do you remember the first mission you went on?
I would say the first mission I went on was probably a night OP, listening to observation post. So I was like maybe 300 to 400 meters away from the patrol base, and just being just listening out to see if there's any enemy movement or activity during the nighttime. Pretty much to serve as an early warning, just in case we came under attack during nighttime. That was my main thing during the beginning.
What did an average day look for you in the first couple of weeks there at Shabu?
Shabu, first couple of weeks, it was we were establishing our battle rhythm. So we had Marines doing posts to man the security posts at the patrol base. Then you had Marines doing day patrols or a night listening post, and then you had Marines what we call the North TCP patrol, vehicle checkpoint. So you have Marines out there. So we all rotate. I think it was like every 3 to 5 days we'll rotate out there. Vehicle crew with the scouts, the 0311 in the back will go out there and conduct traffic stops and stuff like that. So that's what it was during the first couple of weeks.
What was your relationship with the locals like?
The locals, they seemed pretty friendly out to the west, but I think to the south they didn't. For whatever reason, they didn't seem they like us at all. But other than that, I think it was even kill. We didn't really have too much issues from the locals, but you could tell as you're patrolling who's friendly and who's not just by the facial expressions, I would say.
What about the Afghan security forces? How was your relationship with them?
Oh, those guys, they were cool. I didn't have any issues with them. They were, some of them knew a little bit of broken language, English and stuff like that, so we could communicate with each other. But I never had any issues with those guys.
Did you have any translators you worked with?
Yeah, we had two translators. One was we called K, and the other guy was what was his name? Ghani. Yeah. So two Afghan interpreters.
What did you do with any free time that you had?
Oh, free time. Free time. Me, I slept, read books, and I worked out sometimes. Weapons maintenance, clean my rifle. That was it.
What were the facilities like there? The weights and all that stuff.
So when we got there, Second LAR had some stuff they put together. They made a bench. They had sandbags. And that was about it. like a pull-up bar. I can remember that they had that there. So yeah, that was about it.
What was the biggest threat you faced?
The IEDs, I would say definitely IEDs. Indirect fire.
When was your first contact with the enemy?
First contact. What was it? I'm trying to think. Trying to think of the incident of when the goats stepped on the IED. But around that time frame was probably what,
Early December?
late November, early December. So I would say, yeah, tail end of November, early December. So we had go herd to step on IED. So it was set up in an area that Marines had previously patrolled. So I would say that would be the first contact with the enemy that our platoon had experienced, and then that led up to December 5th of 2009. That's when we had the firefight with the Taliban.
What do you remember about that day, December 5th?
So December 5th, I just remember it was like about eight or 9 man patrol. We had EOD with us, and we had an engineer out front, and it was a presence patrol, and we were sweeping for IEDs. So I think it was roughly around like 10 a.m. in the morning. It was daylight. We was patrolling. We got to a certain point where we had to go over this little hill, and at the top of the crest, the front half of the patrol was already there. And I just remember one of the EOD technicians yelling back, "They have a rocket, get down!" And that was at the time that was Staff Sergeant Rash. So the rear portion of the patrol, we got down. The other guys in the front, they took off, and I could hear the gunfire going off. Then I had my point man look up, see what's going on. He said that he didn't see them; they had took off. So I was like, we got to get moving. Pop up, a star cluster back to the patrol base, show them like, hey, we're in contact, and try to get comms. So it was a lot going on. We eventually all linked up, and we saw where the enemy was at, and we turned fire, and then then we crossed over into the farmland with my fire team to sweep up to see where the guys were at, and we cleared the objective. So that's what happened with that. They had AKs with them. They had grenades. They were trying to set up a 105 or 107 rocket to shoot at our compound. So we pretty much found them in the midst of doing that.
Were there any other patrols or operations that stood out to you there in December, early January?
Before I would say before we left out, it was a couple patrols we went on. We did some overnight patrols. We stayed out overnight to try to find IEDs, because I think we were getting intel from the locals that the Taliban was planting IEDs. So we did a couple of those daytime patrols. We go out with EOD, and they were actually finding the devices. So I felt like we was being productive then, finding IEDs that could hurt coalition forces, ourselves and the locals. So that was pretty productive leading up to us leaving. I think it was December or late January. That was leaving out to go out west.
In January 2010, Bravo Company embarked on its first large-scale offensive against the Taliban. The operation was codenamed Western Light. What was the goal of Western Light that you remember?
The goal that I remember was we were trying to clear out this bazaar that was a stronghold for the Taliban, where they were using is to make it was IED making factory pretty much. These guys had a stronghold on this place for a while. We wanted it to take over that area, establish a foothold in that area, and establish another combat operation base. So and that was Cop McDonald at the time that they were trying to set up. So it was building up for further missions to the Pakistan border. So,
what was your role in that operation?
At that time, I was part of the ground combat element as far as being on the vehicles. We had the mine sweeping, guys up in front of us, and we were part of that, going up to assist. So we wasn't the. I think we was the secondary part of the effort of the mission as far as being in the ground combat element. So I was a gunner in on the platoon commander's vehicle.
Did the operation go smoothly?
Initially, leading up to, I would say the first day was it was successful. Like we definitely took over, got in, and the Taliban did run, but unfortunately they left somebody behind. Third platoon took care of that issue because they were inserted on with the Ospreys, so those guys were instrumental in doing that, initially getting that foothold onto the bazaar. So I would say the initial setup went smoothly. No casualties at that time when we set in. So.
On January 23rd, 2010, Bravo Company's 3rd Platoon was struck by a dismounted suicide bomber as they occupied their patrol base in the Zaranda-Calais Bazaar. The platoon suffered mass casualties. Can you tell me your recollections of that event?
So my recollections of that event was, I had just came off of being a roving patrol for our security at the little compound that we had took over. I was actually sleeping, and I was woken up by the explosion. Then I heard the radio traffic from 3rd Platoon's platoon commander calling for assistance. So I got up and put my gear on, got my boots on, strapped up, and then went out on the perimeter to assist with security. And we sent out Marines and Doc Garcia down to help those guys out. And I think it was Master Guns, who was Master Sergeant at the time, Master Guns Hilton. He pulled up in his vehicle, and then one of the mechanics from headquarters came back. He's like, "Hey, we need body bags," and I was like, "Oh, this is bad." And then I want to say maybe within 15 20 minutes, they EOD showed up to come respond for that, and I escorted those guys, and so I got to see pretty much the aftermath of after the guys had already been medevaced out and all of that. So I saw the it was like rubble everywhere. The smell, I can remember that. Just digging through the rubble to try to find the Marines. Issue gear, try to doing the recovery, doing that time. Then what else was it? Definitely finding the body parts of the suicide bomber himself. So I remember that vividly. We were digging through the rubble. I think it was First Sergeant at the time, First Sergeant Ward. He thought he had a rifle, and when he dug it up, it wasn't a rifle. It was the suicide bomber's leg. So we recovered that. Whatever was left from the Marines, personal gear, and that was pretty much it for that day. I remember and then getting those guys out of there and just establishing security within our little base that we had. So we pulled those guys out after that, and then went back in the next day to firm it up and wound up finding another IED device. So later on during that time, so that was disposed of. But yeah, that was pretty rough.
2 men were killed initially, and several more were critically injured, including Sergeant David Smith, who later passed away in Germany at a hospital. Do you remember when you heard that Sergeant Smith had passed away?
Yes, it was. I want to say it was the morning of the 26th. We got the word then that he passed. So everybody was pretty upset about that. We already upset about what happened with Kane and Chi and all the other guys that got wounded, but that was Smith dying was a big hit to the company. I want to say, man. So
how did you cope with the loss of your friends during the deployment?
Oh, we just stayed busy, man. I want to say because we knew we had a long stretch still going on, so I think everybody was like taken back about it, but it's like we still had to go on, press on, because if we're not on our P's and Q's, then it can happen again. So I think everybody was a little high strung and then just staying busy throughout the deployment towards the end.
When did Operation Western Light end?
I want to say we probably pushed out. I want to say probably the end of January, towards the end of January, and we wound up at 5 Payne and we're operating out of there through the rest of the deployment.
And what did the company transition to from Cop Payne? What was their new mission?
So our mission basically was doing census operations and stuff like that, and patrolling the rat lines, trying to prevent any fighters coming in to assist the operations going on in Marja, because at that time, during the time frame that we were there, it was the battle for Marja was going on. So that was a big thing that we were doing. So it consisted of us going out for 10 days, living off the vehicles and patrolling various areas in our battle space, and then coming back for 5 days, rest, refit, and then filling in on the posts on the base to do base security and working in the battalion, COC, stuff like that.
Did you feel the company was well suited for this mission?
For that portion, yeah, that was stuff that was pretty standard LAR type stuff that we could do, that we were well fitted for.
Any issues with the vehicles or any of the equipment?
Just going through the sand dunes, we get stuck sometimes. The tow variants would get stuck a lot, so we had to assist and pull them out a lot. But I think we had good equipment, with the navigation, the Blue Force tracker, and all that stuff. I think we had good equipment and weaponry for that mission set.
On March 24th, Bravo Company received word that their battalion sergeant major, Robert Cottle, was killed along with his driver, Lance Corporal Rick Centani, when their vehicle struck an improvised explosive device. When did you first get this news? How did it hit you?
When we first got the news, I think if I can recall correctly, I think I was at the MWR tent, and they was shutting everything down. It's like I think the Marine that was in charge of it was a comms Marine. He's like, the Sergeant Major just got hit. So we went to, River City, Charlie, whenever it's a casualty that goes down. So that was where I was at. So it was shocking, I want to say. Because it just seemed like we was just at a memorial service for Smith and Chi and Kane, and then they told the Sergeant Major and his driver is dead. So that was rough, I would say.
Did any of the events of the next couple of months stand out to you, doing census ops, routed interdictions, anything happen that you remember?
The drug bus, I would say we had a big drug bus, catching guys trying to transport opium across the desert. It was a pretty considerable amount of process tar opium. It's definitely ready to go ship out and put on a plane somewhere to head either to this country or in Europe somewhere. So that was a big deal, I want to say, towards the end. Yeah.
Were you able to communicate with your family back home a whole lot?
Yeah, that one, once they set up the MWR tent, I was able to Facebook, email home. We had those the AT&T calling cards. You call home with satellite phone for the platoon. So yeah, it was definitely good communication back home. I want to say during the deployment. So yeah.
How long did Bravo Company's interdiction missions last?
I think the interdiction missions lasted from right up until the end of the deployment, I want to say. And once first LAR got there and we and turned everything over, that was the end of the mission for us.
When did you first get the news that you'd be rotating home?
I want to say it was sometime in April, early April. The first LAR was on their way over, and we'd be leaving real soon.
Did you feel that you'd accomplished the mission that you set out to complete?
No, and I'll be honest with you, no. I didn't feel a big accomplishment coming home from the deployment because all the people we had lost on the deployment, I didn't see it as a success as opposed to my first tour. We had one wounded, no deaths during that deployment. So that's why it made me feel that like what did we really accomplish here? Looking back, I think we just there, as a presence. But as far as getting the mission overall, I'm like, no.
When and how did you leave Afghanistan?
I want to say it was in May by plane. So it started from our transit from Five Payne. I think we were picked up in helicopters to Fob Dwyer. We got on C-130s to Camp Leatherneck. We stayed at Camp Leatherneck for a couple of days, and then we got another plane to go out to back to what's the place called? Manassas. Because at the time there was a volcano that went off. They didn't know we were going to go through Manassas again or go through Kuwait to make the transition back home. And then so that was it. And went back to Pendleton first, and then from Pendleton back to Maryland. So I think we were home by Memorial Day weekend of 2010.
How were you welcomed back home?
It was a warm welcome home. We had escorts from the airport, police escorts, all that. Family was waiting at the reserve center, and then from then on, I just went to go try to get to my son. I wanted to see my son because he wasn't there. But yeah, that was it.
What are some of the things you remember most about your service in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan, definitely the IEDs, the suicide bombers, because that was the biggest thing. The biggest threat was the IEDs. And just what I take away from it also is that the Iraq and Afghanistan, the areas that we were in, it's just different people, different culture, and they're definitely detached from the centralized government. Those people just wanted to be by themselves, be left alone, really. You could definitely tell that. But yeah, we definitely didn't need to be there, I don't think, at that time.
What are your thoughts on the war in Afghanistan as a whole?
I don't think it's a necessary war at this point. Like, I don't think we need to be there right now. I think over the last 2 decades or so and a half, I think enough blood has been spilled over there, Americans and locals as well. But definitely, I think the mission is done. Our purpose for being is done. I think we should be home.
Do you have any regrets?
Just not everybody coming home from that deployment. I think we could have brought more people home, as opposed to us losing all the guys that we did. But I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, that was it.
How'd your service in Iraq and Afghanistan affect the rest of your time in the military?
How did it affect the rest of my time in the military? I think it just made me want to stay even longer because I felt like as I went up in the ranks, I saw younger Marines coming in behind me, and I felt like I could help them and teach them stuff that save their lives if later on they eventually have to go downrange, go on the deployment. So definitely I just want to stick around for it, to be around for that.
When did you make the decision to transition through service branches?
So I think it was like after I finished my degree, I had graduated from college. I got a criminal justice degree. I was looking at trying to get into law enforcement, and I felt like I had done enough at that point. I was like, this LAR thing is cool, but I don't think it's gonna help me Well, as far as
It's a
my
young man's
transition,
game.
yeah. So I did, yeah. So it's a young man's game. I was like, I'm gonna transition over to the Air Guard. So now I'm security forces, which is Air Forces version of military police, and I've been doing that for the last 3 years, going on 4 years now.
You planning to retire?
Yeah, I plan on retiring. I'll probably stay in at least another 6 or 7 years, and then hang it up.
Do you feel your country's grateful for your service?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, Jai, thanks very much for taking the time to sit for this interview. As you know, this interview will be submitted to the Library of Congress to be preserved for the benefit of future generations, so it's possible that your descendants will be watching this interview in the future. Is there anything you'd like to say to your descendants who may be viewing this?
If you have the opportunity to serve, do it. Doesn't matter what branch, and enjoy it. And just be a productive citizen, of the society. I think being in the military is a good thing, but it's not for everybody. I'll say that. But definitely take advantage of it if you have opportunity to do it. And that's it.
All right, Jai, thanks again. Appreciate your time.
All right.